From athletes to authors, innovators to icons, we connect with those who help shape the South's culture, revealing the stories of their lives, their journeys, their triumphs and tragedies, what molded them into who they are today. Broadcasting across the Southeast, telling the South stories. This is where their stories live. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating. This is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, we bring you an Audibles Encore. This week, Geno Lee.
October 13th, 1965. That's when we start writing your story.
That sounds so old. What happened on that day?
It goes by quick, doesn't it?
It does. My goodness.
You're born here in the Jackson area, right? Born and raised right here.
Right
So
here in
how would you
Jackson.
describe growing up here in Jackson?
Well, I didn't grow up in Jackson.
Okay.
You know, when I was born, my mother was a freedom rider.
Okay.
She came here as a freedom rider to fight for civil rights. In fact, she's in a museum downtown. The only Asian lady that's in a museum, and she's in a little private room. There's a story about her because she started a group called the Tougaloo Nine. She enrolled at Tougaloo College.
Oh, wow.
And she formed a group of people. And the only reason why it doesn't have more people is because she only got 8 other people to follow her. You know, so the Tougaloo Nine, and they started a little group, and they went downtown. And they got arrested, and then she met my dad. And when I was born, Mom said she didn't want to raise a child in the South anymore, so we moved away, moved to Missouri, and Mom and Dad found a house, but the people wouldn't let them buy the house because the neighborhood wasn't integrated yet. I was like, goodness gracious! So we moved overseas. So I was actually raised overseas.
Where at?
Germany. We were civilian in Germany.
What was that like?
Oh, man, it was a different world. See, I didn't know any different, though. You know, all my friends were German because we weren't in the military, so we lived on the economy. So we lived, my neighbors were German. I went to American school, but yeah, it was an experience. So I lived there until I was a junior in high school when we came back to the States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some things you don't read in all the articles on Geno Lee. Wow.
Right.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I didn't, I guess, 1980 is when we came back to the States.
Okay.
So I guess since then, yeah, I've been in Jackson, you know, but before then, no.
Now, your family story traces back much further than that, back to your great-grandfather, Big John Mora. A Hispanic man made his way to Mississippi after hitching a train ride from Mexico City to Chicago and then back to Jackson. Is that
Right.
how it went?
That's exactly how it went.
So how would you describe Big John's journey that kind of laid the foundation for your family?
Well, during that time, it's a neat journey. During that time, it wasn't unusual for Hispanics to come to Mississippi. Not necessarily Jackson, but mainly in the Delta. Slavery had ended. Somebody had to pick the cotton, and black folks no longer wanted to pick the cotton, so Hispanics started to come to Mississippi. That's why in Mississippi right now we have a very large hot tamale trail, and it takes you all over the state. That's because the Hispanics came and they worked the cotton fields. While a group of people were picking cotton, there was somebody inside the field fixing lunch. Guess what they made? Hot tamales. Well, my great-grandfather was one of them. He came to Mississippi and said, I'm going to work in the cotton fields too. Only problem was my great-grandfather, his name was Juan. And here in the South, people couldn't say Juan, so they called him John. Juan Mora. And so Juan Mora, he was 4'11" tall and 4'11" wide. And the joke is, when the doctor told him to get into shape, he chose a circle. You know, so you can imagine the Mississippi heat where it has a heat index of like 350. So he's out there in the cotton field trying to pick cotton. It just didn't work, you know, with his size. So he found his way to Jackson and figured I'd make a living making my mother's homemade hand-rolled hot tamales, and stood on the side of the street corner on Ferris Street in downtown Jackson, and with a fire in the ground, a tin drum, and sold his hot tamales in the street. So that's how we got our start here in Jackson.
That's amazing. I've heard you tell pieces of that story other places, and I was like, that's a remarkable story. You talked about your parents being so deeply involved in the civil rights movement, especially your mother being a freedom rider. Her perspective on activism, community. How does that now play a role in the Big Apple Inn and kind of your outreach in the community being there on Fair Street?
When I first graduated high school, I had this great, I guess, realization of who God was. And I went to St. Joe, and I was a good old Catholic boy. Had my prayers memorized like I was supposed to, and you know what I mean? But I went straight to seminary. After high school,
Oh,
I
wow.
I studied for the priesthood. I decided I wanted to be a priest and went to seminary, graduated, then started theology. And in theology, I just fought a lot with the headmaster and with the priests and the that were there. And I think I just saw too much behind the scenes of the Catholic Church. Ended up leaving the Catholic Church, and of course, I didn't become a priest.
Right.
I still wanted to pursue something in ministry, so I continued and went to Bible college. I'm a pastor today, but I think that when I came to the Big Apple Inn, I wanted that to be my ministry.
So, can you go back to a specific moment and kind of go, that was the aha moment as far as, when cooking or food became kind of an important thing where I don't know, maybe it was on your radar for the future. Can you go back to a moment that maybe you can remember that appeared on your radar?
Yeah, when we were living overseas, both of my parents were educators.
Mm-hmm.
Mom was a teacher of an American school, and Dad was a principal of an American school. And as you know, teachers get 3 months off in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here we are living in Germany. We had an old lime green 1977 VW van. And every summer, with those 3 months off, we would travel all over Europe. We just take off and go to Spain, spend a month in Spain. Take off and go to France, spend a month in France. Just going to different places throughout Spain or France. Then we go to Holland. And we did that every summer.
Wow.
And the greatest thing about that, I loved all the neat things, the castles and the architecture and all that. But my favorite thing was the food. Whenever we go to these different countries, I'd always want to try the food. And I knew then that I was hooked on food. A lot of people, eat to live. I live to eat. I look for, to this day, I plan my vacations, I plan trips around food. And what's wild is maybe it's a sickness because even my daughters do the same thing. Whenever, in fact, my daughters, they're getting ready to take a little sister trip, and they're going to Brazil this summer. They haven't picked hotels out, they haven't done anything, but they've picked out the restaurants they already want to go to, and made reservations. So I think that was when I realized I love food. Now, I still had no interest in cooking at the time. I just knew I loved to eat. I don't think that I developed an appreciation for cooking until I actually came to the Big Apple Inn, and I saw what a really neat restaurant this is, not just because of the story and not because I'm getting a chance to meet people, but I'm cooking for people. And people are watching you. If you ever been to the Big Apple Inn, we cook right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's made to order, and you're looking at us cook your food. And I think that's when I developed an appreciation for cooking.
Do you remember how young you were the first time you had a pig ear sandwich? We're going to tell the story about that. But
Yeah, I think my first pig was actually when I owned the place.
Really?
It wasn't before then. No, it wasn't. I never tried one. I was in the restaurant one day, and it's a white guy that came in, and he loved pig ears. Jim said, in the middle of the place, it's one evening, and he screams out, "Geno, you ever had a pig ear?" And I said, "No, Jim, I haven't." So he stood out and looked among everybody in the place. "Geno, the owner of the Big Apple Inn, has never had a pig ear." So everybody started chanting, "Pig ear, pig ear." So I stood on the table and ate my first pig ear. That was about a year after I started that I owned the place.
What was the reaction to it? What was the...
Well, a pig ear, and I can tell you exactly what it tastes like. Have you ever had bacon? I call it Shoney's bacon. Bacon that's not cooked crispy, kind of chewy still, or more like pork belly maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Pork belly you can tell it has a pork flavor. Biting into that and a lasagna noodle that's cooked al dente at the same time. That's the taste of a pig ear. And I tell a lot of people, eat with your palate and not with your eyes. Close your eyes, take a bite, and you'll love it. But if you think you're eating a pig ear, or if you think you're eating brains, or if you think you're eating whatever it is, if you think about what you're eating, you probably won't eat it. But if you close your eyes and just eat with your palate, like, man, that's pretty good.
I'm going to try one, I promise. I promise I'm going to come out one day and try one.
It's on a bucket list.
Okay.
Garden and Gun magazine, I forgot 10 things you must eat before you die. I think it's number 9. Eat a pig ear sandwich.
You go back to the history of the Big Apple Inn, founded by Big John, your great-grandfather. It's been a family-run establishment. I hope I got the year right. 1939? Is that correct? Can you share the story of how your great-grandfather, how he founded the restaurant, and how it's kind of evolved over the generations?
Yeah. Well, when my great-grandfather first came to Jackson, or first came to Mississippi, He had fallen in love with an African American woman. Never got married though. We called her May Mama. I never met her, but Mom and Dad, they called her May Mama, and they had a son. So you can imagine this Mexican guy, and this very dark skin. I mean, she was, as we call it, black. You know, she was dark as my hair. You know, and but my grandfather came out very fair skin, completely straight hair. But you can tell he was mixed with something. So. When my grandfather was selling hot tamales on the side of the road, and my great-grandfather was coming up, and he was growing up, my grandfather, Harold, he was actually delivering ice in Belhaven and the Fondren areas to the rich folks who lived there. You know, they didn't have refrigeration, so they delivered big blocks of ice in ice boxes. He would pull this wagon full of ice, and he'd drop it off to all these rich folks' houses. And in the early mid 1930s, it became available. A building became available. This Lebanese guy, I think it was, came to my great grandfather, and said, "I have a building front available for you if you want to open up your little tamale enterprise inside of a building." Well, he didn't have enough money to get the building because the guy wanted $100, and you know, remember that 39 is a lot of money to me. It's a lot of money now, but. So he had 50, his son Harold had 50, and they opened up a storefront. And at first it was just a little grocery store, and they sold tamales and did fresh fruit and vegetables and things like that, and that's all they had. Then the sandwiches came later. He would go down to the butcher every day and pick up his smoked sausage. Now, back then there was a place called Jackson Packing Company. Do you remember that place, Jackson Packing?
I remember.
On Gallatin Street. And he would go to Jackson Packing Company every day and pick up his Red Rose smoked sausage. Now, Red Rose is a sausage that's only made here in Jackson, not made anywhere else, and they don't even ship it out of the state. So he would go pick up his sausage every day, and that went on for a while. And then the local owner of the plant said, well, John, you know, I have all these pig ears that we're doing nothing with. We're throwing it away. Would you like them? And my great-grandfather figured, yeah, I'll do something with them, figure out how to cook them. And he figured out a way to cook them and started putting those on a sandwich. And the rest is history. So we're known for smoked and ears. Now, right now, to this day, we only have 6 things on our menu. We have 5 sandwiches and hot tamales. That's it. We have smokes and ears, and then we have hamburgers, hot dogs, and bologna. But those are just side things. Some people order hamburgers, hot dogs, and bologna, but most people come for smokes and ears. Smokes, ears, and tamales.
Smokes, ears, and tamales. Yeah. I think I have my next destination for lunch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Today's conversation is brought to you in part by Farm Families of Mississippi, reminding us that every meal starts on a farm.
From our view on this farm, food security is national security. Our nation must have a sustainable food source. Keeping the supply chain moving and food on our grocery store shelves by growing the cleanest food in the world.
We're only one of thousands, but we are united as one to grow the food, fiber, and shelter you need every day because Mississippi needs us. Mississippi needs farmers, the Farm Families of Mississippi.
Hey, it's me, Gus the Gopher for Atmos Energy. I dig all around the yard. Occasionally, I bump into a utility line and get a headache. But if you hit one with your shovel, backhoe, or ditch digger, you could cause a gas leak, disrupt service, or worse. So call 811 at least 3 business days before you or someone else digs in your yard to have those underground utility-owned lines marked. It's free and it's the law. You dig what I'm saying? For more on safe digging, visit atmosenergy.com/811.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
When it comes to concrete work in Central Mississippi, trust a name built on generations of craftsmanship. Nico Concrete Contractor. Nico is a third-generation concrete professional with over 30 years of hands-on experience and more than 20 years in business right here in Brandon. From residential driveways and patios to commercial parking lots, metal building foundations and retaining walls. If you want it done right the first time, call Nico Concrete Contractor. Built on experience, built to last. Audibles continues with support from Farm Families of Mississippi, where agriculture meets everyday life.
So one of the things in the story that I appreciated in preparing for this, Medgar Evers' office was located above your restaurant there, and this was at the heart of the civil rights movement. And I've heard you mention in other places before, Fair Street, kind of being a central hub during that time. When you reflect on your family's role and kind of the role they played in that movement during that time, what emotions and thoughts come to your mind?
I think that shaped who I am today, because right now I fight for diversity. I fight for equality. My wife's the same way. My daughters especially. My mother, who was a freedom rider, she was very, very short. She stood like 4'9". You can imagine a little Asian lady, but had a mouth this big. My youngest daughter, who's 19 now, we call her Little Nana, because that's what we called my mother, because she's a splitting image of my mother. I mean, just makes a stand wherever she goes. She's at Ole Miss right now, and stands for everything. She's such a big voice, for equality, and I love that. So yeah, it's kind of shaped who I am, and shaped who my family is. There's a few books that are out. People who helped shape the civil rights movement, and people, African Americans and African American families who helped shape Jackson, and our family is always listed, and it's really neat that we are. I love being part of that legacy, and sometimes I don't think we really did a whole lot. I just think that my great grandfather and grandfather were just in the right place at the right time. Would they have taken such a big role in civil rights if we weren't directly downstairs from Medgar's office? I don't know. You see, Medgar's office, when he was field secretary for the NAACP, and one of his things was to organize the Freedom Riders whenever they came to town. His office was like a 10 by 10 square foot room. Whenever they came to town, if he had meetings, he couldn't hold his meetings inside that little room. So guess where he held them? Inside the Big Apple Inn. Not because we were such a big push for civil rights, just because it was convenient. And he held his meetings inside of our place for the longest time until, for some reason, we started fielding health inspections, fire marshal inspections, and things like that. By then, my grandfather and great-grandfather had already bought into the whole movement, and they decided that if anybody's ever arrested, they're no longer going to hold meetings inside the Big Apple Inn because it just had too many implications. But if anybody's ever arrested, they would take their own money and go bail them out of jail. So whenever Freedom Riders were arrested in Jackson, they would take their own money, bail them out of jail, bring them back to their house, give them a meal, and they say a new set of clothes, and tell them to go back out and fight some more.
Wow.
That's how my mother met my father. Because when she was arrested, my great-grandfather bailed her out of jail, brought her home. My dad came walking out of the back. Hey, cutie, who are you?
It sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the Big Apple Inn served also as a safe space for all the freedom riders, everyone fighting for justice, everyone a part of the civil rights movement. It sounds like the Big Apple Inn was sort of a safe space to gather, and I've heard about the meetings being held there. I've read about that. Is that kind of a fair assumption? It was kind of a safe place for people to gather.
I don't think it was just strictly just the Big Apple Inn. I think Ferris Street was a safe place. Yeah. In fact, Charles Evers, Medgar's brother. He's quoted as saying, his office was above the Big Apple Inn, not because it was the best spot in Jackson, but because Ferris Street was a safe place. Ferris Street was a place where African Americans could gather in safety. Once they stepped foot off of Ferris Street onto Capitol Street or other areas, the white section of town, it wasn't as safe. In fact, my father has a story. When he was 5 years old, he walked off of Ferris Street and walked down in front of the King Edward Hotel, the old famous hotel, and 5 years old, and walked right in front of the hotel. The doorman came out, or bellhop, or whoever it was, came out and started beating him with a stick because it was on the wrong side of the road. 5 years old, but he was on the wrong side of the street and in the wrong section of town. So Ferris Street was safe. That kind of thing didn't happen on Ferris Street.
You talk about it being a safe place. It's also where a lot of entertainers gathered. The Crystal Palace, just down the street at the time, it was A-list performers came there. Here's some of them: Sammy Davis Jr., Red Fox, Cab Calloway, Lena Horne, Muddy Waters, Louis Armstrong. Duke Ellington all took the stage there. It's a pretty big, high-profile crowd, and yeah, I imagine at least a few of them made their way to the Big Apple Inn at some point, right? Have you ever heard any stories?
Yeah, probably. I tell you, photographs weren't taken about it. History wasn't written down about it. It's all by the stories we heard. And my father and grandfather and great-grandfather tell me about the stories of people who would come in, but they weren't worried about fame or trying to get a picture. Selfie time with Cab Calloway. They weren't worried about that kind of stuff. Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Picture time.
Can you imagine though?
Yeah. But, my great-grandfather and grandfather, it wasn't like it was a legacy building thing. They were just trying to make a living.
Right.
They were just people who had businesses up and down Ferry Street. They didn't realize they were making history. They were just trying to put food on their family's table. So
Wow.
we didn't realize I didn't realize what a cool place it was until I started, after 10 years of me being down there. And I'd heard these stories all my life, but nobody else ever had. So that's why, I didn't start telling this story until about 2009. And that's the first time people started hearing about it. And I started putting the story together, and then the whole, because before 2009, I guarantee you would never heard of the Big Apple Inn. Now, the African-American community had, because they've been coming down for generations and generations and generations. But people, especially the white population and people out of the state or out of the country, had never heard about it because nobody ever heard had ever heard the story. And it's such a shame because we need to make sure that our stories are told. I want to make sure that my kids know the stories. And because when I die, I think about the stuff in my garage or in my attic. The stuff in your garage or your attic.
Oh,
What's going to
gosh.
happen when you die with the stuff? It's probably going to be thrown away
Yep.
unless you tell the importance and the significance behind some of these things. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to start telling our stories to make our kids and the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation realize the significance behind all that. I was reading in a book not so long ago. They said 10 years after you die, most people aren't going to remember you unless you make yourself memorable and tell your stories.
Support for Audibles comes from Atmos Energy, helping to fuel homes across the South with safe, reliable natural gas. We'll be right back.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas from Atmos Energy. It's efficient and reliable energy that's essential for today and generations to come. You can count on affordable natural gas to help you save money and keep you comfortable while fueling your dream home. So make the smart choice and talk to a builder today about including natural gas. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
From the seed, and the soil grows row after row. We take care of this land, using just the right amount of our natural resources and never more than we need.
We are only one of thousands, but we are united as one to grow the food, fiber, and shelter you need every day. Because Mississippi needs us. Mississippi needs farmers, the farm families of Mississippi.
Is cooking your passion? Do you love to bake? Do you want to be a chef? You need to check out Culinary Arts at Holmes CC. When the affordable tuition you need meets the technical skills you want, that's when you know you're a Bulldog. A Holmes Community College Bulldog. Enroll today at holmescc.edu.
Welcome back to Audibles, presented in part by Atmos Energy, natural gas, the smart energy choice for your home.
I love that you are telling, like I said, in the research for this, I saw a lot of different segments and read a lot of stuff. But how did you make your way back to? How did you arrive back at the Big Apple Inn? I heard you earlier. You were in the financial sector before you came back to
Right.
Jackson. Is that correct?
Right. I was in insurance and investments, and I mean, I enjoyed it. I made a living. I was young then, but I thought that that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. My uncle at the time, who owned the restaurant, it went from my great grandfather to my grandfather, then to my uncle. And my uncle got it because we were actually living overseas. So we had no ties at all to the Big Apple Inn. When we came back to the United States in 1980, we came to Mississippi, and our plans were to move straight back to Missouri, because Mom still had a really bad taste in her mouth about Mississippi.
Yeah.
And it ended up, we came here right around the time to enroll in school. Dad didn't have a job, so they enrolled me in local St. Joe school here. And still the plans were to move to Kansas City. But I met friends, and I said, well, can we please just stay? And we decided to stay in Mississippi. So Dad got a job, Mom got a job, and we ended up just staying here. And slowly moved into the ownership of the Big Apple Inn, kind of, as I said before, by default. You know, I had no interest in the Big Apple, and neither did my dad. We didn't want to be in the restaurant business. We knew nothing about it. But when my uncle got sick, somebody had to take over the business, and they were about to close it down. And that was about 30 years ago. So that's when Dad said, Geno, want to take it over? He'll take day shift. I took the night. He worked from 7 till 3, and I worked from 3 to 11. And,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did your uncle give you guys any advice, any pearls of wisdom before you took over?
No, my grandfather did. This is my. I didn't get it. I didn't get this revelation from my grandfather until he was actually older and on his deathbed, and I had owned the Big Apple for a little while now, and I still wasn't completely acclimated to the restaurant business. At that time, I was still like, golly, this is a lot of work for little pay, you know, and that's the way it is in restaurant business. Mm-hmm. You know, you're lucky to break even, you know, and he sat me down, and on his deathbed, he was 95 years old, and he looked at me, and I'm thinking, you know, this is a dying man's last words, mm-hmm. and I'm leaning in and I'm waiting because I know that this is going to be pearls, you know, and I'm about to take something to the bank, and he said, Geno, yeah, Papa. And with such sincerity and a weak voice, he said, you'll never be rich. And I stopped. I said, that's it? That's what you got to tell me? He said, but. And he took that dramatic pause. But you'll always be satisfied.
Oh, wow.
And that moment changed my relationship and how I looked at the Big Apple Inn.
Your outlook, perspective was totally different.
Completely changed. Because I realized then I was thinking of the whole Big Apple Inn journey wrong. He was down there doing a service to the community. He was down there meeting people. He was down there keeping prices low for the low-income families who were around. He was down there feeding people who couldn't afford to go to another place in town to eat, feeding people free. I wasn't thinking like that until that moment. And that's when everything changed for me. And I said, now I realize that this is my ministry.
What a blessing that you got to experience that moment, though.
Right.
That's incredible.
Right.
You guys have been reviewed by, good gosh, tons of publications, media outlets, you name it. Is there one where you went, okay, now you got my attention? That's pretty cool. What was the first one that really grabbed your attention? Can you remember?
Wow. I really can't.
Yeah.
I'm completely humbled by whenever anybody calls us.
Yeah.
When you called me, I was humbled. Like, wow, it's just amazing that people want to hear this story. Mm-hmm. You know, and what a blessing it is to be part of that story. You know, I think I was a little taken aback, though, when ESPN Game Day, like, of all people, you remember, did you see that?
Yes.
You know, that kind of caught me by surprise. You know,
Wright Thompson was the one that voiced that,
right,
wasn't he?
Yeah, right. And we had just done, in fact, we had filmed something for, what was Wright Thompson? They were doing, what's that show that John T. Edge has?
True South.
True South.
Yeah.
We had just done an episode of True South. And they were in town, the whole thing. Said, Geno, we got in touch with ESPN Game Day. They want to do a spot. I said, man, let's go. That was kind of cool because that was ESPN Game Day of all things.
Yeah.
You know?
That's pretty cool.
That, and also something caught me by surprise too, was there's a documentary done by the Southern Foodways Alliance called Smokes and Ears.
Yep.
You've probably seen it. And that was a really neat documentary that was done on us. But it's really cool when I get a text sometimes from Ole Miss football games. They're playing your documentary during halftime on the big screen.
Oh, wow.
You know, when I get texts like that, I say, wow, that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat.
Full disclosure, that's where I learned your story, watching True South.
Oh, really?
No kidding. John T. Edge, friend of the show, I watched their show on a regular basis, and they were highlighting Jackson, Mississippi, and I immediately thought, I've got to get this Geno Lee guy on the show. I've got to reach out to him. I was taken by the story and then started reading, researching, watching, consuming whatever I could. I was like, all right, it's a done deal. He's got to be on the show.
Well, John T. is the guy responsible for me telling my story.
Yeah.
He's the guy that said, Geno, we got to get this story out. He was over the Southern Foodways Alliance at the time. And I don't know if you know John Currents.
John's been on the show.
Oh, has he? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, John's a restaurant mogul. And he was the one who told John T. said, John T., there's this place in Jackson that's a hidden gem. We got to go down there and just film what goes on down there. And after they filmed that, the Southern Foodways Alliance voted the Big Apple in to get something called the Ruth Fertel Keeper of the Flame Award. The Ruth Fertel Keeper of the Flame, they're the owners of Ruth Chris Steakhouse. And they give one award to an establishment that's been doing something and been doing it well for a number of years. And they look at people all over the United States. Well, we got that award. Wow. And that's when that video, Smokes and Ears, was made. And that video there, that documentary took us all over the country at different food and film festivals. And that, so John T. was the one who really pushed us to get our story out.
I would think for me personally, I was really taken by Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain. I watched a video with you and Bourdain, John T. Edge, and he was quoted as ranking your restaurant as one of his favorite hidden gems in America. That's pretty high praise right there. I've always been a big Bourdain fan. For me to see that was really cool, but what was it like for you to hang out with Bourdain?
Anthony Bourdain's a different character. He really is. Now we've had a lot of different encounters with Food Network people and Travel Channel people. Anthony Bourdain was a quiet soul.
Really?
Now he knows food and he knows what to say, but off camera there's not much small talk. In fact, when we filmed that episode, there was a lot going on Ferris Street. There was a movie being filmed on Ferris Street during that same time he was here. Get On Up, a movie about James Brown. Yeah. So one of the directors of the movie was Mick Jagger and Dan Aykroyd. So they were in town too. And the guy who played in Get On Up, what's his name? I forgot Black Panther guy.
Chandler Boseman?
Yeah,
Chadwick Boseman.
So they're all in town. So that night we all get together and we go to Walker's to get a bite to eat. And we're all sitting around and everybody's talking and chatting it up and having a good time. Anthony sits there quiet, doesn't say a word the whole time. He's just a quiet guy.
Mississippi farmers raise over 800,000 head of cattle each year. We take care of our livestock so you get what's good for your family on your table. We are only one of thousands, but we are united as one to grow the food, fiber, and shelter you need every day. Mississippi needs farmers. The Farm Families of Mississippi.
Hey, it's me, Gus the Gopher for Atmos Energy. I dig all around the yard. Occasionally, I bump into a utility line and get a headache. But if you hit one with your shovel, backhoe, or ditch digger, you could cause a gas leak, disrupt service, or worse. So call 811 at least 3 business days before you or someone else digs in your yard to have those underground utility-owned lines marked. It's free and it's the law. You dig what I'm saying? For more on safe digging, visit atmosenergy.com/811.
When it comes to concrete work in central Mississippi, trust a name built on generations of craftsmanship. Nico Concrete Contractor. Nico is a third-generation concrete professional with over 30 years of hands-on experience and more than 20 years in business right here in Brandon. From residential driveways and patios to commercial parking lots, metal building foundations and retaining walls. If you want it done right the first time, call Nico Concrete Contractor. Built on experience, built to last.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
You guys are celebrating this year, is it 85 years this year?
85 years, yes.
85 years. You know, we're all about trying to stay local, whether it's, food, partnerships, whatever the case is. I'm all about trying to stay local, but it seems like a different restaurant chain is popping up, every 30 seconds nowadays. How does that create a challenge for you guys, or does it?
It does. Every year it gets a little bit tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Every year the next generation, they're moving towards the fast food industry, things that are really quick. We're a generational business, and people who come, my daughters want me to start either a podcast or a YouTube channel or something. Well, not so much YouTube channel because YouTube's going out, they told me.
You really should do a podcast.
Well, it's something simple as, table talk at the Big Apple Inn.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a Big Apple story.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever anybody walks in, whenever we do tour groups, we have a lot of tour groups that come through, and I'll speak to them, or I'll jump on a bus and speak to tour groups, and I'll say, listen to this, and I'll call just a random customer to come in here, and they don't know what I'm about to do, and I say, give me your Big Apple Inn story, and put the mic in front of their face. They always have a Big Apple Inn story.
Wow.
I've been coming down here, I'm 80 now, I've been coming down here since I was 6. Whatever it is, but they have a Big Apple Inn story, so they want me to start something like that. So yeah, as I said before, I'm just really humbled the role that I get to play in all of this. What was the original question again? I don't know why I thought of that.
Just the challenges that you guys face.
Yeah, so every year it gets a little harder. Plus, it gets even harder being in the hood. Mm. Now, having a restaurant in blighted areas in the poor sections of town, I can't raise my prices that high. But meat prices are rising every week. Mm-hmm. Bread prices are rising every week. Everything is rising, but I can't continue to go up because then my customers can't afford to eat with me. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have to take another job. I work another job just so I can keep the Big Apple Inn open and so I can keep my employees. And I will say that my employees are so loyal to me. I haven't had to hire anybody in over 15 years. When people go through these hard times in fast food restaurants or in restaurants in general, mm-hmm. having a hard time hiring folks, I don't have that problem because we treat them like family.
You're on pastoral staff at Word of Life.
That's right. Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
I've heard you talk about your faith, so this is a good lead in. What does faith mean to Geno Lee?
I think that my role here on earth is just strictly to lead people to Christ. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was put here. Mm-hmm. Being at the Big Apple Inn just gives me a whole new platform. And I love that. Now, at church, it's expected. So yeah, my role that I serve in church, Pastor Geno, it's expected that Pastor Geno was going to lead you to Christ. But people don't expect that at the Big Apple Inn. But when somebody comes in and places their order and I see that they're frowned up, let me get a smoke in an ear. The first thing I do is pull them aside. Hey, what's going on? You have that down look. And then they tell me their story and what's going on. It gives me a perfect opportunity to pray for them, or
mm-hmm.
just to be with them, or to exchange numbers. So it's just given me a whole new platform to lead people to Christ.
I've heard you talk about how you look at that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that being at the Big Apple Inn, you just referenced it, it's your ministry.
It is.
It's your ministry.
Oh, and it's no secret. Now sometimes people come down to the Big Apple not wanting a sandwich, but they just want prayer or somebody to listen to or just a hug.
Mm-hmm.
When I had a tour group come through last Monday. It's a group that came from California, and it was a group of 20 folks, and I'm explaining to them what Ferris Street is and what the Big Apple Inn is, and they asked me what role do we play in the community, and I was telling them about when I first took over the restaurant a little over 20 years ago. I started a tutorial program. The kids in the neighborhood, I would have them come to the Big Apple, and I would feed them free if they brought their homework. So they would all bring their homework to the Big Apple, and it was full, like 20 kids, and we're all working on homework together. And I was the one that actually met with their teachers for parent-teacher conference days. So they would come and do their homework inside the Big Apple Inn, and then I said, okay, time to clean the place up. And they'd all grab broom and dust mops, and they clean the Big Apple Inn, and I'd feed them free and give them a few dollars, and then they'd go home at night. And those were my babies, and I've seen them grow up. Some of them will go by the wayside. And I would tell them, and I told the group, some of them got arrested, or some of them even got killed. I was telling them about one guy that got arrested, and I haven't seen him in over 20 years. Wow. And this is so, I hope I don't break down on this. We walked out of the Big Apple, and I'm walking the tour group out of the building. A guy walks up to me and says, Geno, you remember me? I had no idea who he was. It was Michael Wayne. The boy who I just told the people I hadn't seen in 20 years, just got out of jail 2 days before that.
Wow.
Been in jail for 20 years. And walked up and gave me the biggest hug. And I said, man, you ready to pick up from where we left off? And now he's cleaning up for me again. But he was a kid when he left. And the people who were there, like, wow, this is amazing that we get a chance to just see this. But see, that's the kind of, that's the reason why I'm on Ferris Street. That's why I'm 60 years old now, and people ask me, when am I going to retire? As long as I'm able to get up in the morning without creaking too much, I'm gonna go there. My grandfather came to the restaurant every day until he was over 90 years old.
Wow.
And I see why now. It's not to cook. It's to talk and meet and just be with people.
You guys are the community. You
Right.
are the community there. And it's remarkable that this young man, the first place he thought to come to after he gets out of confinement is to come to you.
Right.
That speaks volumes about the mark that you're making there on Ferris Street. That's what I think.
Right.
Mississippi farmers raise over 800,000 head of cattle each year. We take care of our livestock so you get what's good for your family on your table. We are only one of thousands, but we are united as one to grow the food, fiber, and shelter you need every day. Mississippi needs farmers. The farm families of Mississippi.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas from Atmos Energy. It's efficient and reliable energy that's essential for today and generations to come. You can count on affordable natural gas to help you save money and keep you comfortable while fueling your dream home. So make the smart choice and talk to a builder today about including natural gas. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
So let's get down the road here, 5 years from now. What do you hope the future is for the Big Apple 5-10 years from now?
Well, I tell you, I don't have a 5-year plan. I probably should. I don't even have a plan after my generation. Because my daughters don't want it. So I might be the last of the Big Apple Inn. My wife and I were talking about it the other day. She said, that the place might close after you. I said, yeah, it might. And that doesn't sadden me one bit, because I don't want the place to go to my daughters if they don't have the same zeal for the people. Now, I told my wife, I said, baby, don't worry about it. They're going to change their mind, and they're going to see, it was prophesied over my baby girl that she was going to be an evangelist. It was prophesied over her when she was young.
Oh, wow.
And it's so amazing that she texted us the other day and texted us, do y'all remember when that pastor told me that I was going to be an evangelist? Like, wow, so it's still in her mind, and that's the kind of thing when I hear her say things like that, I'm like, okay, maybe she's going to be the one to move in, seeing that could be her area where she ministers, so they just got to see it. Kids these days, they have different views of income. They don't want to work on a job for 30 and 40 years. They want to make their millions right away in social media or TikTok or whatever, But I don't, so no, I don't have a 5-year plan. I just wake up every day and say, okay, it's another day I get to do this again.
I hope someone does take it over because, and even like you said, even if they don't, 85 years this year and however long you have from this point forward, I mean, you talked about telling the story, making sure that your history, the Big Apple's history, the people who are attached to the Big Apple, that those stories remain, that history remains. So I appreciate how you're trying to get that story out there more and more, and I hope this helps too. I always love asking this question. If you could go back and sit down with 20-year-old Geno Lee, how's that conversation go?
Don't work for money. When I was 20 years old, I guess I'd have to go a little bit older than that, Jason, because at 20 years old, I was in seminary, and Catholic seminary at that. So I wasn't money focused at that time anyway, because Catholic priests take a vow of poverty, poverty, celibacy, and obedience. And so I would probably say, talk to the 25-year-old. Because that's when my pursuit of, okay, you gotta get there and get it, boy. You gotta get out there and make some money. Gotta do this. And I think that's what my drive was. That's when I was in the financial field. That's all I wanted, just to make more. I got lost there. So I think that's what I would tell you. Don't work for money. Work for, as I said, my grandfather gave me pearls. That when he told me, you'll never be rich, but you'll always be satisfied, and that resonated so deep with me. And to me, that said, don't work for money, but just work to make people happy, and so you can go to bed every night knowing that I've done everything I could to make this world a better place. And I think that's what I would tell that 25-year-old.
My final question for you: if you could have a conversation with Big John right now, and he could see all the success, all the ministry, all the things you're doing for the community there that he set out to do, how do you think that conversation would go?
He would tell me, Geno, you're doing exactly what he did. He would say that you remind me of me when I was your age, because that's what he did. He did exactly what I'm doing now, but he's saying in Spanish. His English was so broken. I mean, he couldn't speak English, So there's this girl who used to come down to the restaurant when he was running the place. Her name was Penny, and they called her Penny because that's all she ever had. And she'd walk up there and give me a smoke and a pig ear, and she'd put a penny on the counter, and he wouldn't say a word. He'd make a smoke and a pig ear and give it to her. She never knew it cost more than a penny. But that's what he had. That's what she had. So he gave it to her because that's what, So I'm just following in his footsteps. So I think that's what he would tell me. Geno, you're doing it now. And there were some people, who would have money, and they'd blow it on other things, and then come in there and beg Big John for something, and he'd cuss them out in Spanish, but he'd feed them. Here, get out of here. But he'd always feed them.
Your family in the Big Apple Inn, a cultural and iconic testament to longevity, a big impact on the community, not just on Fair Street, but abroad. I love the story. And like I told you the first time we talked, first time I saw that interview with John T. Edge, I said, I got to get this guy on. And we've had several conversations since then, and it's always you're just such a joyful light to this community. And I pray for a great future for the Big Apple and for you guys. Thank you for what you've meant to Jackson and Mississippi. And thank you for doing this, taking a few minutes with us to do this.
It's an honor, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Geno.
All right.
Madison Ridgeland Academy. The site for tonight's big matchup between Jackson Prep and MRA. Patriots versus Patriots.
We're now getting ready to have the Chef Challenge. Nick Wallace against Geno Lee.
Ooh.
Real stories, real legends. The South's own storytelling show. Join us next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.